Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt, and today we're back for another specialized category predictions video, just like documentary and international, and we are now moving on to the animated feature film category at the Academy Awards. Last year won by The Boy and the Heron, which at the beginning of the year seemed like a bit of a long shot. Not to say that The Boy and the Heron was an independent film by any means, or a small indie darling that could, but it definitely wasn't the overdog. It wasn't a Disney movie, it wasn't Pixar, it wasn't Spider-Verse. This year, I don't want to go immediately to a studio film. I think that as we're seeing a shift in all of the awards in general, the Golden Globes, the BAFTAs, the PGAs, all of these awards feel like they're going a little bit more to the international. I think we could be getting to a point where the Academy doesn't just write down Disney on their ballot and just ship it in. I think we could be entering an era where we get a lot of really interesting winners in the Best Animated Feature category. And that's why I believe that the winner of this year's animated feature category will be Memoir of a Snail. This is an Australian stop-motion animated film directed by Adam Elliott, who is known for his 2009 masterpiece, Mary and Max. Memoir of a Snail is his second feature film after Mary and Max. He hasn't done anything for 15 years. It premiered at the Annecy Festival of Animated Films, and it won the top prize. Everything I've been hearing about Memoir of a Snail is it's emotional, it's hilarious, it's beautiful, it moves you, it has everything it needs to perform extremely, extremely well. Mary and Max was not nominated for Best Animated Feature, unfortunately, but that was also one of the strongest years for the animated feature category of all time. Keep in mind, 2009 was the year where the nominees were Up, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Secret of Kells, Coraline, and The Princess and the Frog. That's a crazy lineup. But if you look at those nominees, how they're rated on online forums, IMDb, if you look at LETTERBOXD, all of them are dwarfed in comparison to the audience reception that has been garnered by Mary and Max. Mary and Max has just gained this cult following, has gained this appreciation. I think people really know and love this film. I believe Mary and Max is popular enough that when people see advertisements for Memoir of a Snail, they're going to want to see it. Now, it's not like Adam Elliott is Hayao Miyazaki, but I think the film is going to stand on its own. With the Golden Globes now being a more international body, they're going to be more open to giving a film like Memoir of a Snail their award. I believe the BAFTAs will too, and while the PGAs might not go for it, they'll nominate it. The Annies, this is a shoo-in to win the Best Independent Feature. So to me, if we don't have one big blockbuster animated film to rally behind, but people are really passionate about Memoir of a Snail, then this one could absolutely end up being a big winner. At number 2, I have the anime film, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. This is a very interesting prospect, a big budget American studio film. It's produced in Japan, but also has the original cast of The Lord of the Rings, at least part of that cast, and it's not like a Studio Ghibli looking anime, and it's not like a Demon Slayer looking anime. The pictures look like a 90s style anime, like Ghost in the Shell or Angel's Egg. The only thing that really makes me a bit worried is that historically we've seen the Academy be less than kind to non-Studio Ghibli anime. The only anime film that I can remember getting nominated that was not Studio Ghibli is Mirai. Mamoru Hosoda, who did that film, is getting pretty close to the status of Studio Ghibli, but they overlooked Weathering with You. They overlooked Your Name. They overlooked A Silent Voice. There's a lot of anime films that don't get recognition because of a bias against non-Studio Ghibli anime. With an anime action film, that bias could be even stronger, where some voters might look at this and say, that's like a Saturday morning cartoon. That's not real art. Maybe we're moving past that attitude a little bit, but it is a concern. That said, the fact that so much of the Lord of the Rings team is on this, the fact that this has a very strong December release date, that makes me feel like this film is very strong, despite the holdbacks that I have. At number 3, there's Inside Out 2. A lot of people are going to say, well, why is that not number 1? That's ridiculous. This is the biggest film of the year. It's a $1 billion movie, and it's Pixar. Pixar wins all the time. This would be the lowest critically received film by Pixar to ever win the award. Even Toy Story 4, which people are going to bring up and say, oh, Toy Story 4 was also seen as inferior to its predecessors. That still had over an 80 on Metacritic. That was a very well-received movie. And Inside Out 2, sitting at about a 73 on Metacritic, puts it closer to the territory of Finding Dory or of Incredibles 2 because of what a huge sensation it is. It will get a nomination, but I don't think this is going to be in win contention at the end of the year. I feel like people see this as a step down from the first film. So to me, Inside Out 2 is a film that I don't think will come close to being in the conversation for an awards win. At number 4, I have Universal Pictures' The Wild Robot. I was really high on this one, and in fact, I think I had it briefly as my winner in the category when the first trailer came out. And then the second trailer came out, and they started showing the voices. I was hoping this would be a much more visually driven story, and seeing the trailer where not only is the robot voiced by a very non-robotic Lupita Nyong'o. It's an odd choice for a robotic voice because she's so expressive. And also having all of the animals be anthropomorphized, voiced characters as well. It's not hitting me right. I've seen some people say, well, last year The Boy and the Heron made its TIFF premiere and it just rocketed out of there, and maybe The Wild Robot being at TIFF is a sign that they're confident. And sure, maybe, but it feels a little closer to me to something like Abominable, which premiered at TIFF a few years ago as well, or Sing, which premiered at TIFF, or Hotel Transylvania, which premiered at TIFF. They always bring animated films to TIFF. It doesn't mean anything necessarily. They could be big contenders, they could not be. How I feel about The Wild Robot is the animation looks spectacular. This film looks beautiful, but it sounds like a different story. It sounds like something that's going to be very basic, very one-dimensional, something we've seen a million times before. And so I am feeling less confident than ever in this film on a personal level, but I still think it might have enough to get in here if it's well received. And rounding out the top 5, there is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. Of course, Wallace and Gromit's last film did so well, it won the category. Wallace and Gromit is a beloved series with the Academy Awards. I think Wallace and Gromit has 2 Oscar wins for the shorts categories and 1 for the feature category, one of which being the first appearance of Feathers McGee, the antagonist of this one, the little penguin who dresses up as a chicken and does crimes. And it seems like this film will follow him getting his vengeance against Wallace and Gromit. It's a very funny premise. Now, that said, I do worry with the fact that this is a BBC original film in Britain. That's a little bit worrying to me, but that said, I do have faith in Aardman. That faith did lead to me predicting Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget all year last year, and then it not being anything when the Oscars actually came around. So maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic about the new Wallace and Gromit film, despite some of the warning signs. To me, I want to have a Netflix film in my top 5. Last year, we had Nimona in the top 5, and this year, the only Netflix film that looks like a promising contender to me is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. So until something else pops up for Netflix, this stays in my top 5. Now, outside of my top 5, I've got plenty more films to go through, so hang in there, because at number 6, I've got a film that I saw at the Cannes Film Festival, which is Flow. This is a Latvian animated film, it has no dialogue, and it feels like a video game. And I mean that in the best way. This tells the story of a cat who is stranded on a boat as the water around them is continually rising. And this boat becomes like a almost Life of Pi without a person on it. The thing that I loved about Flow is that all of these animals feel like animals. They're not talking. They're not like the animals in The Wild Robot. They act like animals do. And the way that they interact feels real. Looking at the cat on screen, I was thinking of my own cats, Totoro and Calcifer, which I got to shout out here because this is an animated category video and I have 2 Studio Ghibli cats. Flow really captures the personality bodies of these animals, and it does it in such a visually inventive way. It's also very exceptional because this film was animated largely by one person. The director is a stellar animator, and he's made 2 films now despite being in his mid-20s. This guy's insane, and he just does most of it on his own, beautifully computer animating everything, inspired by old video games. Flow is one that could definitely do very well on the independent critics circuit. It could get that Annie Award nomination. I don't think it'll win against Memoir of a Snail because it didn't win against it at Annecy, but this one is really stellar, and having a release coming from the Criterion Collection, from Janus Films, I think that will give it the visibility that it needs to be taken seriously. I just don't know what above it is going to drop out at this point. Now below that, I have Moana 2 at number 7, and the whole reason here is that there is just red flag after red flag after red flag. This was supposed to be a Disney Plus series that they were like, we need a movie. Let's turn this series and the 7 episodes worth of content that we had into a new movie, and we're going to add songs. But the songs aren't by Lin-Manuel Miranda. They're by the people that did the unauthorized Bridgerton musical. They only recently started recording the dialogue, despite the fact that this is coming out in like 4 months. Something feels wrong about this. Yes, it will be beautifully animated. Yes, the water is going to look stunning. I expect this to get critical reception similar to Frozen 2, and I expect this to do similar at the Academy Awards to how Frozen 2 did, which is another sequel that didn't need to exist. Will this be a massive box office hit? Yes, because people are fools. Will it be taken seriously by the Academy? Maybe in the song category, but not here. At number 8, there is the Pharrell Williams documentary biopic, Piece by Piece, which I think looks really cute. I think that they did a good job with the Lego animation. Of course, we have to acknowledge that Lego movies have never done well with the Academy Awards. The Lego movie is one of the most high-profile snubs in this category of all time, and they never made up for that. They didn't nominate Lego Batman. They didn't nominate the second Lego movie. No Lego movie has gotten a nomination. Piece by Piece doesn't look as creative as those other Lego movies, but having Pharrell Williams behind this, someone that is really loved within the sphere of awards, this film looks fun. And while I don't currently think that it's strong enough to get into the category, it could definitely push upwards, especially if the documentary does really, really well financially, which is possible. This could be one of the highest grossing documentaries of all time. Regardless of what happens at the Oscars, this feels strong for a Producers Guild nomination. This feels strong for a Golden Globe nomination. This feels strong for a Critics' Choice nomination, and so it sits right there on the edge. At number 9, we have The Colors Within. This is the new film from the director of A Silent Voice. The Colors Within also premiered at Annecy and got very good reviews there. People are saying this one is very strong, maybe not as strong as A Silent Voice. And G-Kids is coming off of a very successful campaign for The Boy and the Heron last year. They have this one, and maybe there's enough goodwill around anime. I know I just said earlier with the War of the Rohirrim that there's not a lot of goodwill around anime, but maybe, just maybe, G-Kids can wield some of the might that they had last year with The Boy and the Heron and use it to push The Color Within into some critics' prizes, to push it into some other awards, just like how After Your Name was an unexpected success in 2016, and how Weathering With You kind of got a little bit more attention after that, including being Japan's submission to the Oscars that year. The Colors Within could use the fact that A Silent Voice was really discovered after 2016 and kind of push that into getting this one more nominations. Rounding up my top 10 is Despicable Me 4, which is out in theaters right now, making a bunch of money because Illumination movies always do that. It has a mediocre critic score because that's also what Illumination movies do. The reason this one's in the top 10 at all instead of way out of there is because Illumination movies always do this. They get middling critic scores, they get crazy box office, and they end up picking up PGA nomination because those awards typically will just nominate anything that makes money. I'm treating Despicable Me 4 the way I treated the Super Mario Bros. Movie last year. No matter what, this is getting some nominations, even though at the end of the day, there is no way this gets nominated for the Academy Awards. There's Spellbound, which I believe is coming from Apple TV+. It's a musical. So if Moana 2 flops, then Spellbound is the obvious replacement because this is a different musical that could be received a little bit better. At number 12, there's The Most Precious of Cargoes, which played at Cannes. I thought this film was a piece of trash, but that said, not everyone agrees with me, and it is a sappy, very emotional story that could resonate. I don't think that this is going to be able to make it all the way, but it's still worth mentioning. Mufasa the Lion King. Some people considered the 2019 Lion King to be an animated movie. In fact, it got a few animated film mentions, but because Disney at the time was so strongly saying this is the live action Lion King, this is the live action Lion King, they did not submit it for the Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature. We could see a difference happen with Mufasa the Lion King because I still expect some critics groups to call this an animated film. I expect it to pick up some animated film nominations along the way. The question is, will Disney campaign it as such? If they do campaign it that way, then there is a possibility that this gets nominated. I just don't know if they will campaign it that way. Another Netflix film, if Wallace and Gromit is not the one, Orion in the Dark, got some pretty good reviews, but I think has kind of disappeared into history already. It only released a few months ago, and yet I feel like people have completely forgotten about Orion in the Dark. Is it possible that it gets a resurrection before the end of the year? Absolutely, but I would not bet on it at this point. Savages from Claude Barras, who is a Swiss filmmaker, previously been nominated for his film My Life as a Zucchini, and while My Life as a Zucchini was a sensation critically, people loved that movie, especially with its Celine Sciamma written script. Savages, which premiered at Cannes, seems to have a little bit more middling reception. People liked it, people did not love it. This is not My Life as a Zucchini 2, which is why it's much lower down the list. There's also Transformers 1, which all goodwill I had towards this died as soon as I saw the trailer. I thought maybe this could be this year's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, but no, it's not. It had none of the charm that Mutant Mayhem had. The animation looks really plasticky and gross, so that's why this is so low down my list. Following that, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I have a few more films that are possible contenders that I just want to see if they run up a little bit more. For example, Kung Fu Panda 4 is a film that I think had its peak in theaters and is not a contender, but is still worth mentioning on the list because it could pick up a nomination here or there. For the most part, these are films that I would classify as long shots. But that brings me to the end of this video. If you want to hear about any more animated films, if you want to tell me about something that I missed talking about, let me know in the comments down below. Let's start a conversation. And thank you so much for watching this video. As always, my name is Matt. This has been Fantasy Filmball. We'll see you next time.